All right, for this next section inside of GBLP, I want to talk to you about leadership development. And I know, yes, GBLP, the Green Beret Leadership Program, is all about leadership development, but we want to dive in more specifically, not talking about developing leaders inside of your team, which is more what GBLP is all about, and more, I want to talk about leadership development inside of yourself, developing your own leadership skills. It's a really foundational principle to us when it comes down to leadership or really just anything that has to do with people. We can only understand other people at the depth that we understand ourselves. We can only lead others at the quality that we can lead ourselves. The better we are at leading ourselves, the better we are at understanding others, understanding their perspectives, and leading them. It helps us to be a more effective leader when we do understand ourselves. So that's why focusing on your own leadership development is one of the best ways to help develop leaders in your team as well, because you're also really showing them that you are committed to your own leadership development, helping to improve yourself, and it really helps you find other ways to teach them. As you learn new techniques, new leadership skills, you can maybe refine some of your skills so you can pass those on in a better way to the other people inside of your team. But it all starts with you understanding those yourself, because how are you going to teach anything? How are you going to develop leaders if you don't know what that means, if you don't know what it takes to get there? So I'm going to talk about 3 keys to leadership development. Again, this is leadership development for yourself. Going through them real quickly here. So the first is going to be books. I'll define that a little bit more here, but we're going to keep it short. First category is going to be books. Second category is hard knocks. And the third key to leadership development is cross training. So we'll go through each of those in a little bit more detail here. First, some of the pitfalls that I see a lot with my clients when we kind of work through these systems and help to develop their own leadership development systems. I got 4 we'll go through really quick here. The first being they don't really set up a system for this. A lot of us, we might want to be a better leader, but did we set goals to meet them? Did we set a time? One of the classic coaching things is, oh, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start reading that new book that Camden recommended on leadership. Okay, great. When are you going to read it? When are you buying the book? Kind of making sure that those are actionable goals that you can actually move off of, right? And then the other end of that is anticipate some of the pitfalls that you might run into, like these ones I'm going to talk about now, that might stop you from properly implementing this inside of your own routine. So making sure you're taking the time to plan and anticipate some of those pitfalls so you can mitigate the risk there. The next piece is this one. Really, it doesn't happen with good leaders. Honestly, most people who are watching this video probably does not happen to you because you are watching this video, which shows that you want to be a better leader. What happens a lot of times is people get complacent, right? They start thinking that they know everything, and you can't learn that which you already think you know. I think that's Epictetus, and when I know I'm not saying that right because I don't speak Greek. Anyway, you can't learn what you think you already know, so you have to come in with an open mind when it comes to leadership development, so you can find new ways to learn, new ways to improve your own leadership skills. The second piece is people focus on one area and they ignore the other 2. I talked about books, hard knocks, cross training. You need all 3. We'll talk more about that as we go. And we got some fun examples for you. But as you kind of go through it, you have to keep all 3 of those in mind, because as soon as you get out of balance, as soon as you get out of whack, you're going to start lagging in some areas. They all have their own kind of unique offering that they can give to you. They can help you to bring to the table for your team. The third piece is focusing on the team, not focusing on yourself. And so I already kind of touched on this. Leadership starts with yourself and your ability to lead yourself. Leading others also starts with yourself. One of my favorite ways to think about it is if your team, your subordinates are not able to follow directions, is that on them for not understanding the directions, or is it on you to give the directions in a better way, to figure out better ways to communicate the goals, to do's, all those kind of things? It all goes back to the leader. Really, when you start to think about things that are inside of your control, you can't make your team do anything. All you can do is keep improving your own leadership skills in a way that helps you to communicate better and be a better leader for them and to give them the most opportunity to succeed. Failure of the team is not a failure of the individuals in the team. It's a failure of the leader to set the team up for success. So make sure you're not focusing on your team. You want to be focusing on yourself as you go through. Now, to kind of do the quick dives into these different areas, the first is books. It's a little bit self-explanatory. It's broader than just books, but really, it's books, podcasts, school, if you're in school, online courses, anything like that is just kind of getting you the science, the research behind things. One of the keys to being a great leader is that you need to understand the science behind personal behavior, personality types, those kind of things, ways that people learn, different learning behaviors, teaching and those kind of things, as well as the actual organizational psychology of the team. And of your entire business. When you understand the science behind the things, when you understand the theories, it gives you some really good jumping off points. It gives you some really great points of reference into the why behind why you do certain things, why it's important to lead a certain way. And that's what you can get from being book smart, kind of diving in on those books, podcasts, school, and online courses there. The second piece here is hard knocks. Again, a little bit self-explanatory here, but you need to have some real life experience. You need to get hit in the face every now and then. That is a key aspect of being a good leader. You need to get hit in the face because that's where you learn resilience. And resilience is such a key aspect for leadership. If you aren't a resilient leader, then as soon as you hit that wall, you're going to give up. And that means the rest of your team is going to give up. You have to build that resiliency inside of yourself. And that comes from actually being out there trying and actually being out there failing a lot of the time, learning from those failures so you can apply them moving forward. That's one of the keys from hard knocks. The other piece is that real life experience, real life situations, real life data is really important because it helps you to understand the reality of the situation. We talk about like kind of the book smart, that first category. It teaches you some really good theories, some really good boundaries that you're working inside of. But people and working with actual people is very different. Dealing with actual risk mitigation, those kind of things, they're very different than what it looks like in a book. So you have to have those real experiences so you can connect what you learn from the book into reality there. And the last piece, I like to think of this as like the game slowing down. If you've ever heard any analyst, for the NFL, let's say, talk about what it's like to go from college football into the NFL, one of the things that they always talk about is the game is really fast. Some people get caught up in it. The game is too fast for them. They're in reaction mode. They're not being proactive. They can't get to their flow states, all those kind of things. And that's what happens when the game is moving too fast for you, because you might have the book smarts. You might know all the plays. You could draw them up on the chalkboard, but it's very different than when somebody's lined up across from you trying to mess you up. Right? You have to understand what that is going to look like, and that takes that real life experience. As you get that real life experience, the game starts to slow down. And of course, the game doesn't actually slow down, but what it does is you learn how to anticipate what's happening inside of it. You start to recognize patterns. And the same kind of thing goes from the sport into your business. When you have that real life experience, you can start to anticipate certain things inside of your team or inside of different areas of your business. And you can anticipate it in ways that you wouldn't be able to if you didn't have that real life experience. You can start to see these patterns, patterns that they don't tell you about in the books. You can start to notice those and get those precursors so you're able to help to stop some of those things from going wrong, or help to mitigate those risks, because you know what it really looks like, you know what it really feels like inside of your business, rather than just what somebody described it like to you in a book, right? The third area is cross-training. And this is one that I think a lot of people don't think about. Most people, I think, intuitively, when they think about, developing yourself as a leader, they think about books. They think about learning those things, getting the science behind all of it. They think about hard knocks. Well, yeah, of course, I have to have some real experience in order to apply what I learned in those books. Cross-training is an area that I think a lot of people miss. And the value that cross-training brings is it helps you to understand your team at a whole another level. You get to understand what they're doing, why they do it the way they do it, how they do their job, all of those different aspects that go into their own work. And you get to be more empathetic. You understand what they're going through in their job. You can help to understand what they're actually working on, right? It's no longer, I have no idea what people do, but we're doing it well. You actually know what they're doing. You know how they contribute to the team. So it helps you to lead better, because you can help to, be more empathetic with them when talking about their own role. The other key there is it helps you as a leader to help ideate. And what I mean is, when you understand somebody's role, and understanding at a high level, not in a belittling, patronizing sense, but when you really understand somebody's role in your team, you can help them you can bring that outside perspective to help them to innovate there. Hey, have you tried it this way? Why don't we flip things this way? Kind of bringing that outside perspective again, to help them to figure out new ways that they might be able to improve upon their job. The key there is what I was already saying, of making sure you actually have a depth of understanding there. I'll think back to one of my earlier business ventures with my good friend Norman. He was my CTO with our virtual events company, right? CTO, Chief Technology Officer, right? So he knows all technology. So if I go to him and I start talking about, I know this is silly, but building a satellite or something, because I'm like, hey, that's technology. You're CTO. I know your title. I know what you do. He's not going to know anything I'm talking about. He was all into the coding and those side of things. That's the negative example there. The positive example, what I would do is I have a little bit of a coding background. The way I'd put it is I know enough to ask good questions, but I didn't actually know enough to delegate out exactly how to do different things. But that let me go into our conversations when we were talking strategy, and I could lay out some pretty good ideas because I had a grasp of the world that he was working in. It's all about going in depth enough that you actually understand what's going on, not having such a shallow piece of information that you think you know what's going on and you're just barking out orders, because that's a surefire way to make your team hate you, right? So you got to understand that. Now, the key thing to remember, and I've already said this a couple of times, is you need all three of these different areas. Any one of these areas or any two of these areas, if you're lacking the other, you're not going to be as effective leader as you can be. I kind of just want to run through a few examples of that so we can kind of get to what that looks like, so you can either recognize it in yourself or recognize it in a way that you're able to prevent it, right? So first example, let's say you read all the books, but you don't have the hard knocks, you don't have the cross training. Well, I call that college kid, because that's the one coming right out of college. Oh, I read all the books on business. I'm going to go be an entrepreneur and I'm going to do all these fun things. And then guess what happens? Life hits you in the face. Turns out you don't actually know near as much as you think you do. You just read all the books, right? So that's the number one example I like to talk about, is that college kid, right? Where they think they know everything, but they haven't had the real life experiences. And then they also don't know what the other roles are that fit inside their company. They're like, I want to be a CEO. They don't know what an accountant does. They don't know what HR does, any of those kind of things, right? Second example is, let's say you are a proficient at hard knocks. You've gone through the school of hard knocks, but you haven't gone to the regular school. You haven't read any of the books or those kind of things. And you haven't spent any time cross training with the rest of your team. Well, that's somebody who they have a lot of great qualities of a leader. Honestly, most of these examples probably have some good qualities of a leader. They're going to get things done. They're going to get a lot of things done. They're going to get things done their way. There's not going to be any innovation. There's not going to be any of that creativity and problem solving that comes from having those other perspectives from inside of your team, from cross training or from the theory level of understanding in the books, right? When you lack those, you're kind of going to be stuck where you are now. You're going to be very effective. You're going to be able to do your job. You're going to be able to lead your team, but you're not going to be able to do it efficiently. You're not going to be able to improve upon your processes very well. So that's what you're missing in that second example. Third, let's say you are just cross training. You've done every job inside of the business, but you haven't read the books, and you don't have the hard knocks of leadership. You don't have that real life experience of leader. Well, I mean, that's just going to make you a jack of all trade, but you're not going to be a leader. You'll understand a lot about your business. They might love you because you're empathetic to their jobs. They know you worked those jobs, but you are not going to be very effective as a leader, not going to be a very good leader. Last three examples are kind of the combination ones here. So let's say you are book smart and you have hard knocks. So what are you missing with cross training? Well, the way I put it is you don't understand your team and you don't understand the roles inside of your team. So you're going to be very limited in your understanding of your own operations. When you're limited in your own understanding of your own operations, then how are you going to help to effectively organize that team? How are you going to help them to innovate? How are you going to help them to create new efficiencies, new systems, new processes, if you don't understand what their job is, right? Even the best leaders, even if they've read all the books, if I don't understand what job you're doing, if I don't understand how you make the widget that we're selling, then I can't really help you to do your job better, right? So you have to have that cross-training component. Next piece there, let's say you have the books down, you have the cross-training, but you have no hard knocks. What I would consider this is somebody who's overly idealistic. You have an understanding of what's going on inside of the business, right? You have an understanding of what those different roles are. You have the theory level understanding of leadership and all those different pieces there. And so you're going to draw up a plan, and your sales numbers, your profit is going to go like this. And it's like, ooh, look at that. Everything's going to be perfect. Well, newsflash, anybody who's been in business long enough can tell you that's not how it's going to work. So you have to have that hard knocks to bring you back down to reality to prevent that, being overly idealistic. And then the last example is somebody who has the hard knocks and the cross training, but they don't have the books behind it. Really what that comes down to is you're not going to understand the why. When you understand the theory behind things, you understand the science behind things. You understand the why, and that helps you to be able to teach people. thinking back to my rugby coaching, I know a lot of people that I've worked with, whether coaches, mostly players, for this exact reason, where they're naturally good at something. They're very good. They've played the game a long time. They have a lot of skill, maybe going to cross train. They've played different positions. They understand a lot of those different aspects. But then you say, hey, well, how do you pass the ball? And they're like, oh, well, you go like that, right? And it's just, that's how I pass the ball. They don't understand the why behind it. They don't understand the theory behind why you pass the ball, why you need your arm a certain way, how your hands need to be placed, all those kind of things. Same thing goes inside of your business. If you don't understand the why behind things, you might be able to lead yourself. Like, you might be a good and effective leader, but you can't teach that to the next generation of leaders inside of your business because you don't understand the why. And the why is foundational to learning those processes, unless you want to make them go through the school of hard knocks, which I'll pause for a second on that. A lot of people think that's the answer. Oh, let me just send them through the school of hard knocks. That's how I learned. That's how they should learn. Well, do you really want somebody in your team, somebody that you're paying to learn these things, to struggle and bang their head against a wall for 10, 15, 20 years till they get enough experience to be a good leader? No, hell no. Give them the tools they need to be successful. Teach them. And that teaching requires you to understand the why behind what you do. So those are kind of the different areas of why each one of these is so important. Again, you need all three. You need books, you need cross training, you need hard knocks. You need all three of those in order to be an effective leader. And in order to be an effective leader, you can't ignore any of those. It's really important, like we talked about. And then the other piece that I want to make sure you're remembering is, remember that when it comes down to it, leadership, the things that's inside of your control is your own leadership skills. When you dedicate yourself to becoming a better leader and you start working on all of your skills through these different avenues, through books, through hard knocks, through cross training, it's going to set you up to be more successful as a leader. And when you turn that pressure back in on yourself, instead of blaming your team for failing, you're going to find ways that you can improve yourself so you can help your team to prevent that failure from happening again. And that all just goes back to your own leadership skills. So hope you learned something good in this about how you can be a more effective leader, what you can do to help yourself to improve your own leadership. And then we'll take this in a video coming soon and talk a little bit more about how you take these same tools, take the same thought process, and help the rest of your team to develop them as leaders, so you can have leaders from the inside of your organization rather than just hiring new people or by putting people in positions where they're going to fail. So yeah, thank you for your time on this. I hope you really enjoyed it. And if you learned something from this video and you want to learn more about leadership development, highly encourage you go to 10xyourteam.net. On there, we have 3 great options for you to work on your own leadership development. We have the DIY option. Check out the podcast as well as other videos like this, free content out there to help you. If you're a DIY badass and you're already a good leader, you just want to keep getting better, we got a lot of great content out there for it. Then we have the done with you option of the Green Beret Leadership Program, where this video is coming from, where this content is coming from, where we work with you and work with your team to help develop leaders inside of your organization. And then last, if you don't have time for any of that, you're too busy growing the business, you don't have time to build up the business, build the systems and the processes, and focus on culture and all those kind of things, then we have our done for you option of the fractional COO. So check all 3 of those options out. Find the right leadership development system for you at 10xyourteam.net. And I'll see you next time for another great video featuring some free content from GBLP. Thank you.